He owns and operates the Pack-A-Day podcast that airs 365 days a year with over 12 million views on YouTube. A new adventure begins. It's time for the Pack-A-Day radio show with Andy Herman on 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook and on the free Odyssey app.
Second down, 3, Willis to the air, and that is caught by Golden at the 50. Oh, and he was working downfield on Nehemiah Pritchett.
What is up, Packers Nation? Good morning. Happy Monday. My name is Andy Herman. Welcome into the Pack-A-Day radio show. We are live from the 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. We've got a wonderful show for you today. Paul Farrington and Ziggy from the Paul Farrington Show coming up today, 8:20 a.m. Really excited to talk to those guys. The first time ever, 2 guests at the same time joining the show. So looking forward to that. If you're not familiar with the Farrington Show, you definitely need to do so. They are Vikings fans that have a huge Packers following. It's a very odd thing. We'll talk to them about that, but they're coming up again at 8:20 a.m. today. Also would love for you to join the show. You can join us on the Nicolay Law Fan Talk and Text line, 414-677-1250. Again, 414-677-1250. Or as you just heard, you can find us on YouTube as well. If you're already out there, shoot us your comments and questions, and we can get to those throughout the show today as well. It feels like football weather. That's for certain. It feels like fall out there. We are just over a week away from actual NFL football. Preseason is in the books. Packers wrapped up with a preseason win over the weekend, which was nice to have. We heard that Matthew Golden played just a second ago, courtesy of NBC. It was great to see him make that big catch. Just Green Bay be a little less sloppy in that preseason game and come away with a impressive win, which means absolutely nothing, but it's certainly better than the alternative. The Packers made a big trade. We'll talk about that momentarily as well, and then maybe some Packers who have helped and hurt themselves as we get ready for cut down day tomorrow. It's that weird, bittersweet day on the NFL calendar that we're all excited for because we all want to see what this 53-man roster looks like. Well, simultaneously, thousands of people lose their job and are looking for work. So it's this really weird juxtaposition of, I don't wish this upon anyone. I hope everyone lands on their feet. Thankfully, we've got, 16 and 17-man practice squads now, including an international pathway program. So a lot of these players are able to land on their feet. Still not an easy thing. Lots of players uprooted, having to go to different teams, different cities, and just, losing their dreams of playing in the NFL. That's not fun. That sucks. But it is always exciting to see that initial 53-man roster at the same time and see all these roster moves and trades around the league. So again, a little bit of a weird juxtaposition between the two, but we'll make it through it. And part of the deal in the NFL is that when you either sign a contract or are a player or a coach or a GM, you sign to eventually get fired. That just is the nature of the NFL. Very, very few players and or coaches get to leave on their own accord, and it is just one of the weird aspects of the NFL, but we'll cover that all as we look at that 53-man roster today and get that finalized tomorrow. We'll break it all down for you again here on the Pack-A-Day radio show. Tommy, appreciate you being here and helping us as always. How was your weekend, and how are you feeling about all things Wisconsin sports at the moment? A little bit bittersweet at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I had a great weekend. Weekend was awesome. But yeah, the Packer game was great. It was fun to watch the Packers actually put something positive out on the field before preseason began. It felt like we were never going to see that, and then it was like all at one time. It felt like in that week 3 matchup with Seattle. Yeah, Brewers can't win even on the Bob Uecker celebration of life game. Season's over. Throw it away. Probably not going to win another game the rest of the year. But on top of that, football season's right around the corner now, so we don't have to worry about them anymore.
Highs and lows, the beauty of being a sports fan. Just when you feel everything's going great, it's going to punch you right in the face. Just when you think everything's going wrong, it's going to turn around in a moment's notice as well. We'll talk about that Brewers team a little bit later as we get to our leadoff show later today. But we have a lot of things to take away from a Packers standpoint. The Packers do make a huge trade, Tommy, and in very Packers fashion. Just as everyone wants Green Bay to trade for Micah Parsons, just as everyone wants Green Bay to trade for Trey Hendrickson, they instead trade for Darian Kennard, everybody's favorite, Darian Kennard, which actually really like this deal, by the way. Makes a ton of sense for Green Bay. I talked about the other day, I was getting very nervous about the state of the offensive line Not the starters. Most teams are not going more than 5 or 6 players deep. It's a tough thing to find good offensive linemen in the NFL. This is why, by the way, you probably overpay a little bit for Aaron Banks. This is why you spend a first-round pick on Jordan Morgan when maybe there is a Cooper DeJean out there, is because you can get very desperate very, very fast along the offensive line. And if you don't have good players, it starts to scare you very, very quickly. And Green Bay was running exceptionally thin for a variety of different reasons. First and foremost, even if everyone's healthy, even if everyone is 100% good to go, they're running 7 deep at best. And that's with Anthony Belton being the 7th. And as talented as that dude is, I'm not sure I feel totally comfortable just yet if you have to roll him out there for regular season games. A lot of roughness around the edges that need to be smoothed out over time. And I just don't know. I would love for him to get some on-the-job training. That probably isn't the worst thing in the world for him, but there's definitely going to be a learning curve and some bumps in the road along the way. The truth is you probably feel really good about 6 offensive linemen on the roster. You feel okay about the 7th, and then it just drops off exponentially from any other offensive lineman that was on the roster. And you really didn't feel comfortable with any of them going into a game. And we've seen that in the past, whether it be with Byron Bell, Alex Light, Kyle Murphy, Jason Spriggs, whoever it might be. You need to get them in the game. And all of a sudden you have to change your entire offense around the fact that one guy just can't block. And good luck with that, because it is a nightmare. And especially as you go against teams with good defensive linemen, they are going to exploit that dude over and over and over again. So just in and of itself, Green Bay felt like they were 6 to 7 deep on the offensive line, which I'll say one more time is not that odd around the NFL. A lot of teams don't have 5 starting offensive linemen, much less a 6th and maybe even a 7th. But it did feel like there was a pretty big chasm between that 7th guy and then anything else on the roster. In addition, as of right now, Aaron Banks, back injury. Elton Jenkins, undisclosed injury. Jacob Monk, hamstring injury. John Williams, probably not playing this season. Like, there are a ton of injuries on this offensive line. Travis Glover, done for the season. There's a ton of injuries on this offensive line right now. We don't know where things stand with Aaron Banks and Elton Jenkins. Maybe, hopefully, possibly, they're both just going to be ready to go for week 1, and that's great. But if not, you have real question marks going into that first game of, like, even who's going to be your starters. Anthony Belton going to start at guard in that situation if Banks and Jenkins can't go? You're probably looking at Rasheed Walker at left tackle, Jordan Morgan at left guard, Sean Ryan at center, Zach Tom at right tackle. And then are you putting Belton at right guard? Or do you now insert Darian Kennard, who they just traded a 6th-round pick for? So Darian Kennard, that new offensive lineman, I think he's a right guard, maybe a left guard in the NFL. He's played a lot of right guard and right tackle. I think he struggles a little bit more at tackle. They don't need him at tackle. They've got 4 tackles ahead of him on the roster. It's nice that he has the versatility, but to me, he's a guard, 6'5", 322. He's got good size. They traded a 2027 6th-round pick for him. So that's the equivalent usually of a future, like next year's 7th-round pick. If you move off a year, or like a year in the future, it basically takes one denomination down. So a 2026 7th is usually worth a 2027 6th. So they traded 2027 6th-round pick. He's a former 5th-round pick of the Kansas City Chiefs in 2022. He's played a total of 71 regular season snaps, had a 61.3 PFF grade in those snaps, had 101 preseason snaps this year with a 62.9 grade. Just for the record, 60 is average for PFF. So we're talking slightly above average football in his regular season and preseason snaps as of late, which is all you're looking for as an 8th offensive lineman who can come in and spell you and not be disastrous where you need to change your entire offense. Went and watched his preseason snaps this year. He is clearly, to me, better than any of the Jacob Monk, Donovan Jennings, Kadeem Telfort, any of those sort of players. I would definitely put him ahead of those, and slots in nicely as that 8th offensive lineman. There might be a conversation if he slots in at 7, if Belton's just not quite ready yet, but that's a little bit more of a fun conversation. But at worst, he slots into that 8th offensive lineman spot, which is a player who will be active on the game day roster every single week. I think this is a really smart move for Green Bay. Last year, they took advantage of a cut down deadline deal, I guess, trading a 7th-round pick for Malik Willis. That has turned out exceptionally well for them. Hopefully this will as well with Darian Kennard, your newest Green Bay Packer, Tommy.
Yeah, Andy, and I think that really the math works out to, do you think that they're going to keep 8 offensive linemen on the active roster? Do you think that there's a possibility for 9?
They'll
Andy.
keep 9. I think like the thing here that is interesting is Jacob Monk. If Jacob Monk's hamstring injury is one of those where he's going to have to go on IR designated to return, and hopefully Aaron Banks and Elton Jenkins aren't in that situation. I'm just not even putting that in the ether right now.
Yeah.
But if Monk is one that you have to put IR designated to return, then it gets interesting of you have 8, and are you going to keep Donovan Jennings as the 9th? Are you going to keep Kadeem Telfort as the 9th? Or do you still look to make another move, whether it's via the waiver wire or maybe even trading another 7th round pick for an offensive lineman or something like that? So I think that they'll have 9 offensive linemen on this roster come opening week. How they get there, I think, is still going to be very interesting.
Yeah, and I think that it also maths out to what they're going to do with other positions on the offense, right? Like, is it 7 wide receivers? Is it 6? Is it 4 running backs? Is it 3? Like, and then it gives it some flexibility, because I think right now, if you're looking at the offensive line, it's Rasheed Walker. You're going to get Aaron Banks, Elton Jenkins, Sean Ryan, Zach Tom. Like, that's the easy 5. Jordan Morgan and Anthony Belton makes it to 7. Now, where does Kennard fit in with Telfort and Monk as well to make it on to a nice even 9 there? I mean, like, if Monk's going to start on the designated to return, then can they keep Mecole Hardman as like a 7th wide receiver on the team? Or can they have 4 running backs if they do something along those lines? Like, the math is going to be very interesting come tomorrow.
And I think one of the hard parts right now is the amount of injuries that are on this team. And it's so hard to predict. Like, I'm assuming at this point, Colin Oliver is just going to stay on the PUP list. And then where are some of these players? You have 2 players that you can IR designated to return on cut down day, while putting them on that IR list and still being able to bring them back and being able to save the roster spots. So who do those 2 go to? Is it Marshawn Lloyd at running back? Is it Jacob Monk along the offensive line? Is it Barron Sorrell at defensive end? Is it Zane Anderson at safety? Is it one of the wide receivers? Is it Reed or Wicks? Maybe they're going to be out longer than we expected. There are so many injuries that are in the realm of unknown right now. Again, it could be Elton Jenkins for all we know. It could be Aaron Banks for all we know. We just don't know at this point where some of those injuries are. If you told me like almost all those guys that I just mentioned were like practicing this week, I'd be like, oh, yeah, that could easily be the case. And you could also tell me that, 3 or 4 of those guys are not ready for the first week or maybe even first weeks of the season. So they're going to have some very interesting injury designations that they're going to have to sort through. And to your point, that absolutely affects the entire calculus of how many people they can keep at certain positions because of which players they ultimately put on IR designated to return. It seems like the popular theory is that Marshawn Lloyd will be one of those players that goes on IR designated to return, which makes sense, right? Like, even if he's going to be ready week 2 or 3, like, let that dude have 2 or 3 more weeks to rest and get everything right. Just with the injuries that he's already had pile up, like, just let that guy get a few extra weeks of rest and recovery. And then hopefully he's ready to go when you come off the bye week in week 5. And that seems to be the prevailing theory. I think Zane Anderson is the other one that maybe seems like it's going to be a little bit more long-term. I could see him being the other, but if you don't want to use it on him, you also could release him with an injury settlement too. Like, there's a lot of moving parts on this. And I think that's what's going to make the next 30, 40 hours or so very, very intriguing as Green Bay tries to shape this roster. But really like this move for Darian Kennard. I think it does give them a real legitimate offensive lineman that they can kind of focus on and get to that number 8 spot and have a lot more confidence in than anyone that they had on the roster previously.
Yeah, and I listened to sorry, go ahead, Andy.
I was just going to say, listen to the Pack a Day radio show live from the 1250 AM and 105.7 FM, the Fan Studios, and powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. We got the Paul Farrington show coming up here in just a moment, but go ahead. Tell me what were you going to say?
I was just going to say that I was talking about other players that I think really improving their stock in the last game. And the next position that I think maybe has some of the more bigger question marks on how the roster will be built out. Isaiah Simmons is going to make this team, right, Andy? Like, it's going to be Christian Welch isn't going to make the team, I think, at this point.
It's an interesting conversation. So here's the thing. I think there's a decent chance they keep 6 linebackers. I think Isaiah Simmons and Christian Welch are important enough to this Packers special teams that they both make it. It's a really difficult thing to do at times because if everything goes according to plan, you have 4 linebackers ahead of those 2. And you're playing 2 the vast majority of the time. Cooper and Quay are just going to be on the field at all times. That number 3 spot, I think, is now a conversation between Tyron Hopper and Isaiah McDuffie, but those are your next 2. So defensively, and certainly, like, you have no use at the moment for Isaiah Simmons or Christian Welch, nor do you really want either of those players on the field defensively, as we've seen from Simmons, and Welch just isn't right, really quite to that caliber. So are you keeping those two just as core special teamers? And with Simmons, I think the answer, well, you're going to keep one of them as your number 5. That's a no-brainer. It just depends on which one you want to, take a little bit more of a, the feel of like, hey, there are special teams ace sort of thing. And I think probably the answer is Simmons. We heard Mason Crosby talk about it, how important he was when Crosby was with the Giants, of how he was a huge piece of their special teams and a focal point. We've seen, listen, Bo Melton and Isaiah Simmons have been the top 2 gunners on the punt team all off season long. Like, that's usually a pretty massive tell. Like, those guys they're starters. Like, they are legitimate starters. You may not see them as starters because they're just special teamers. They are starters on special teams. Not to mention that Melton and Simmons both on kick coverage as well. You're just using those guys on a ton of special teams units. And I think both those guys, Melton and Simmons, are making the team. Now it comes down to Christian Welch. I think with some of these injuries, as you were talking about that roster math earlier, I think because you might only be carrying 3 running backs, because you might only have 9 offensive linemen and not 10, because there's a few of those spaces that you can potentially keep an extra player somewhere else, I think that's going to help Christian Welch. And he is a good enough special teams player that I think he is worthy of that spot, even if he doesn't have a role on defense. So my prediction right now is that both Simmons and Welch do make this team. But if it is just one, I think Simmons has that leg up right now over Christian Welch.
Well, and I bring up the linebacker spot too, because Matt LaFleur, after the game as well, who was asked about Tyron Hopper, and it just sounds like he thinks the world of him right now after this preseason. And if we really want to talk about stock up, stock down, like if the head coach is saying this about you, I think you're doing all right.
He's one of our most improved players, I think, from a year ago. I think he's done an outstanding job. He's really got it. He's done a much better job communicating, I would say. He's the voice of the defense when he's in there. And so I think he's done a really nice job. And he's still a young developing player, but he got a lot of good work this preseason.
Do you remember when Mitch Nellis came into our YouTube chat the one day and just commented, what if Tyron Hopper is good? Like, what if he's good now, Andy? Do you think that still means that they have that flexibility to keep 6 linebackers instead of 5?
Yeah, I think Hopper's goodness is irrelevant to keeping Simmons and Welch, because you're keeping Simmons and Welch specifically for special teams. And I don't think Hopper's great play at linebacker really changes that all that much, to be honest. I will say this. There is one major way which Tyron Hopper's goodness does potentially change some thinking on this team, and that's with Quay Walker's extension. I have no idea how Green Bay feels about Tyron Hopper. If they feel like, yeah, this guy's ready to go. Like, we're going to learn a lot. If he's in that conversation to be one of the third linebacker instead of Isaiah McDuffie, and he goes out and just balls out, it has to make you double think of, like, do we want to give Quay Walker $15 million a year on an extension, or do we let that play out? And maybe we feel comfortable with Edgerrin Cooper and Tyron Hopper being our starters next year. Save $15 million in the process. Hopper's much cheaper, and you already have him at home. And Isaiah McDuffie's under contract still next year. He can be your 3 next year. You're probably going to go out and draft a guy in the 4th, 5th round to kind of round out that group. Bring back probably one of those veteran type guys like a Isaiah Simmons or a Christian Welch or like an Eric Wilson that they've had in the past, and round out that group. And you feel probably still really good about it. So I think, to me, what Hopper potentially changes is specifically what happens to Quay Walker. So that, to me, is much more of an interesting question than maybe what happens at some of those backup linebacker spots. But we're not going to know that for a while. Goody has consistently said that they want to be able to keep Quay Walker. But now I'm a little bit more intrigued with where, Hopper is on this team, and if they feel a little bit stronger about him.
I just think that he was not really a factor at all last year, right? And we barely saw any action. He was injured a little bit too. And like this year, I don't think anyone had him as part of the plan for Green Bay, especially in the linebacker room that has so many, Edgerrin Cooper, Quay Walker, Isaiah Simmons comes in the offseason. There's like way louder names than Tyron Hopper for Green Bay. And if we're talking about a stock up, stock down report in this first segment, like, I don't know anyone else, maybe him and Jordan Morgan, who improved their stock more this preseason.
I have 10 players on my list of people who have helped their stock this preseason. I have 10 who were hurt. We'll go over the players who hurt themselves in the final segment today. Here are my 10 players that really helped themselves before we get to Paul Farrington and Ziggy here in just a moment. Tyron Hopper, I didn't have this in any specific order, but Tyron Hopper was number one on my list. Chris Brooks at running back, I think he's legitimately solidified his spot on this team. His role that he has is very unique. You need a guy like Chris Brooks on your roster. I think he's really helped himself. John Fitzpatrick, the tight end, I think is the unquestioned number 3 tight end. He went from, is this guy going to make the team, to, again, I think he's locked in at that number 3 spot. Jordan Morgan looks like a legitimate starter on the offensive line. He's had a huge, offseason in totality, not rookie, but minicamp, OTAs, and training camp. Matthew Golden already looks like a legitimate starting wide receiver. Yes, he was probably going to get a lot of opportunities as the first, pick anyway, but he's earned it as well, which you really love seeing. I think Brenton Cox, despite not being a special teams guy, despite not being a starting defensive end, has shown his value on numerous occasions as just a pure 4-3 defensive end type that can stop the run and rush the passer. A huge preseason game for him. Kingsley Enagbare, I think, went from somebody that, looking at that $3 million contract in the offseason, you're like, are you really wanting to keep this guy at that contract? To, oh yeah, he's very clearly making the team. So I thought he really helped himself. Aaron Mosby, especially with some of the injuries to Colin Oliver and Barron Sorrell, Aaron Mosby, who was on the 53 all last year, very much in that realm of making this team at the moment. I'm intrigued by that. Colby Wooden went from a potential cut candidate to changing his body, adding 20 pounds, mostly of muscle, and really remaking himself. And then the Bo Melton thing. I mean, going from somebody who is looking like a clear cut at wide receiver to changing positions to basically a roster lock at corner. I mean, just an unbelievable transition for him. So those are the 10 that I think really helped themselves this preseason. Tyron Hopper, Chris Brooks, John Fitzpatrick, Jordan Morgan, Matthew Golden, Brenton Cox, Kingsley Enagbare, Aaron Mosby, Colby Wooden, and Bo Melton. We'll get to our 10 that hurt themselves in our third segment. We're going to get to Ziggy and Paul Farrington of the Paul Farrington Show here in just a moment. A reminder that Football Talk and the Fan is presented by Paramount Plus. You cannot count on much these days, but you can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus. Watch your local NFL game live every Sunday on CBS and Paramount Plus all season long. Visit ParamountPlus.com/NFL to get started today. We are 55 and sunny in Milwaukee right now. That gorgeous fall football weather is already hitting us. High of 70, low of 52. We're going to be right back with Paul and Ziggy. This is the Pack-A-Day Radio Show powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Welcome back to the Pack a Day Radio Show live from the 1250 AM and 105.7 FM The Fan Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. Reminder that the Mason Crosby Show is coming up from 9 to 11 today. That will be Sparky with Mason from 9 to 11. Mitch still off in the distance. He'll be back later this week. Joining us now on the Fan Guest Hotline, powered by Gruber Law, Paul Farrington, Ziggy of the Paul Farrington Show. You can find them on social media at Farrington Show. They're going to also be guests on the Pack a Day podcast all season long, as I am going to be guest on their Paul Farrington Show all season long as well. I'm really excited for that. Fellas, welcome into the Pack a Day Radio Show. How are you guys doing?
Doing great. Yeah, we're really looking forward to the collab during the season. We just announced that on our show last night, and you're a very, very well loved man, Andy. I mean, people really like you. The comment section was going crazy when we said it.
That's why I had you guys on, for the compliments. The check is in the mail. Appreciate that. Ziggy, how you doing, my friend?
Living the life, Andy. Living the life. It's always
glad to hear. This is
video New Jersey with Paul.
This is the first time we've had two people on simultaneously, so I'm very excited about this. It's fitting that it's you guys. So for those of you unfamiliar, Paul and Ziggy are Vikings fans and very closeted Packers fans, even if they will not admit to it. It's a very interesting dynamic. They have a ton of Packers fans that join their show every single week. I probably am not doing it justice. So guys, I will let you define what your role is in the bizarro Venn diagram of Packers Vikings communities.
Yeah, it's a really bizarre world, especially because I know how intense the rivalry is, especially when you're out in Minnesota and Wisconsin. You know, we're out here, and maybe that's why actually it works, is because we're in Jersey and we don't get the full heat of it. But yeah, we just, during the Jordan Love, during his come up in 2023, as we were kind of soaking in the misery of this is really going to happen again in Green Bay, a third quarterback. Packer fans, and it was kind of twisted, but Packer fans just, you know, they love Viking fan misery, and that's where we were able to build an audience. Was every time Jordan Love played well, we would be upset, and every time we were upset, more Packers fans would watch, until eventually it was like, okay, this is actually working, like financially. So
I mean, you'd think winning Super Bowls would be enough to sort of satisfy Packers fans, but
nope.
They also want to revel in our misery. Yeah. So we're happy to provide. There's plenty of opportunities every year of the Minnesota Vikings. That's just how it is.
Well, we appreciate all of that. And yes, like the Packers winning is on the upper echelon of everything Packers related, but a small step below that is Vikings and Bears misery is also, it also feeds families here in Green Bay and obviously in New Jersey apparently as well. So no, we love that. And like I said, really looking forward to the collaboration all year long with you guys. It's going to be a ton of fun. I want to start off with talking some Minnesota Vikings and kind of getting a lay of the land of what's going on in Minnesota. Then we'll kind of talk some Packers as well. Let's start with how the Vikings have kind of put everything. Actually, I don't want to even start that. I want to start with the most important question, which is JJ McCarthy. This is going to be the piece that shapes so much of not just the Minnesota Vikings, but I think he and Caleb Williams are going to shape so much of the NFC North, not just in 2025, but for the foreseeable future. The difference in trajectories of if those two are either like stars or legitimate franchise quarterbacks or just fine or they just can't play. Like there's a wide range of possible outcomes for those two that changes the NFC North in a really significant way. Let's start with JJ McCarthy. How confident are you guys feeling going into this season for JJ?
The confidence is wavering consistently. I have days where I step back and I go like, all right, this really should work. KOC has been a quarterback whisperer. He gets the best out of everyone. Really, JJ just needs to step in and not make mistakes for this team to be good. Now, at the same time, we've been saying this lately, the Vikings can be very good with a mediocre JJ McCarthy. I don't think there's really a world where they're NFC Championship game. I mean, if we want to start getting a little delusional and talking Super Bowl, we can. But there's no real world where that happens without JJ McCarthy being a very good, essentially rookie quarterback this season. But then there are other days I wake up and I go like, oh my gosh, there's just barely any great film from Michigan. It's like he's been hurt. So I think that the thing with McCarthy at this point to me is we just got to see him on Monday Night Football. And like, I'm sure there will be hiccups because again, he hasn't started in a regular season game yet. So a little patience is required, especially for a team with such high expectations. But right now, I'm all over the place. I could see a world where the Vikings win 6 games this year. I could see a world where they win 11 games and threaten the division.
I certainly get some confidence from the fact that, I mean, Kirk Cousins went down week 8 of the 2023 season. Since then, our quarterbacks have been Josh Dobbs, Nick Mullins, Jaron Hall, and Sam Darnold. And over that stretch, the Vikings have played a lot of pretty good football. So the coaching staff, KOC, the whole offense that's in there, even if JJ McCarthy's not great to start, I think he's probably better than Nick Mullins and Jaron Hall. I certainly hope so.
Oh, please.
And we've been able to get it done with a motley crew of quarterbacks up to this point.
You certainly have. And I think that's one of the selling points, right? Is that there are very few quarterbacks in the history of the NFL that are going into theoretically a better situation than Kevin O'Connell as your head coach and offensive designer, Josh McCown as quarterbacks coach, having a really good running back stable, including former Packer Aaron Jones in the backfield, TJ Hawkinson as your safety valve at tight end. And then, oh, by the way, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and maybe Adam Thielen as well. We'll kind of see if anything happens there. But that's an unbelievable situation to go into. Good offensive line as well. He's got everything that you should be able to, kind of take a first round pick and just let him grow beautifully in that offense. But I think, again, that's sort of the beautiful mystery of everything. And Packers fans are not unfamiliar with this. There was still a lot of those questions, even when Aaron Rodgers had time to sit and went in for the first time, certainly when Jordan Love went in for the first time as a starter. I mean, I'm sure you guys maybe remember this too. The trade deadline of Jordan Love's first season, when they traded away Rasul Douglas, Brian Gutekunst at that trade deadline is like, yeah, the second half of the season is going to be really big for Jordan, basically intimating that, like, we're about to find out if he can actually be the franchise quarterback. Had not had that contract extension done yet. And going into that, it was like, yeah, we have no idea, basically. And then he tore it up in the second half of 2023. And now here we are with, Jordan, the franchise quarterback. But there are, I'm sure, going to be some highs and lows for McCarthy. But how quickly he can, click in that offense is going to be of huge importance for you guys, obviously, as you start the season. As we all know, this NFC North, just a brutal schedule for everyone in the division.
It's terrible. It's really tough for Caleb and JJ. I mean, it's almost kind of fun that they get to play each other week one. Right. And test out. Same thing with the Lions and the Packers. Like, you have, I think, in most people's opinions, the top two teams in the division playing each other week one. And then it's almost like a litmus test for each team. Like, okay, who is the team to beat? And then which of these, bottom two teams is going to be the challenger?
I think so too. I think that's going to be really interesting. And I love that week one matchup. But like, Vikings Bears is one of those games that usually I'm like, I don't really want to watch it because I don't want to see either of you guys, succeed in that situation. But this one it's to me must watch, because what if it's like a shootout and McCarthy and, Caleb just look both amazing for the NFL? That's awesome. For a Packers fan, it's a nightmare situation. Obviously, if one of them looks amazing, the other looks terrible. It's like you're 50-50 or whatever. And if they both look bad, you're like, okay, well, it's Detroit and us, and we'll figure out the rest of it later. But that to me is a really interesting situation going into that Monday night game, and is to me going to be must-watch television for those two quarterbacks and see where they're at in their current development. Speaking of the quarterback position in Minnesota, you guys just recently made a trade. Is your best quarterback, by the way, your undrafted free agent out of the University of Minnesota? I know there's a lot of I'm saying that facetiously, but there's been a lot of buzz about him. In the meantime, they trade away Sam Howell to Philadelphia. I'm going to be honest. I was surprised that you guys actually were able to get something in return. I think it made a lot of sense. And then picking up Carson Wentz as well. Just an interesting quarterback situation right now for you guys.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time I saw a player get traded for, look terrible in preseason, and then you get more back than you gave for them. Like, that's a very rare combination of factors. I think
Agreed.
Sam Howell is not a bad player. We've seen him play good stretches of football. It just was not clicking with Kevin O'Connell and the Vikings offense. You need to be able to run that. I think the big story from adding Carson Wentz, as he said, actually is Max Brosmer coming in and taking that QB3 job. Wentz is not a backup I think I'm super comfortable relying on. He could be a lot better than your average backup. Obviously, he's played good stretches of football before, but I was not impressed with what I saw in Kansas City from Carson Wentz. I think his career is probably mostly over. He might get the Kevin O'Connell boost and sign a Daniel Jones contract somewhere next year. Who knows? But I'm really excited to see what Brosmer is going to be able to do for this team now that he's in there, in the unfortunate situation that JJ McCarthy goes down, which I'm not going to think about anymore.
Yeah, that's like the nightmare, right? Is that we have Wentz or Brosmer actually playing this season. So, like, hopefully this is all just kind of, insurance policies that never come to fruition. But and throughout the training camp too, it was, as Viking fans as well as, podcasters, I'm always just like Googling news like that. I think my default Google search is I just start typing Minnesota Vikings, and you would see throughout the training camp, it's like, another bad day for Sam Howell. And it just kind of kept going and going until that Patriots game where, if you haven't seen the interception yet, it was just horrendous. Like he had a really nice week 1 against the Texans, but then all those negative things that we'd been hearing about, unfortunately came true against New England. And I think that was kind of the final nail in the coffin for Sam.
And to your point, like getting more than what you traded for him. And you also mentioned for Wentz, you maybe get that Kevin O'Connell bump. I'm in the situation where, like, if he's already on his 3rd team in Minnesota, Washington, and then Seattle, right? And then Minnesota, and it doesn't work with Kevin O'Connell and that offense. If you're just like, to me, I'm shocked he almost had trade value, because if he can't work there, like, where are you going to work? Now, Philly is maybe the only answer to that, where they can, again, just find people and develop them out of nowhere. But I was surprised that you guys were able to get something. To me, the difference between Howell and Wentz is probably negligible at this point. So you pick up basically the same guy you already had as a free agent, and then you were able to pick up picks in return for Howell. And then obviously Brosmer is the one that, again, has maybe a little bit more upside there. That to me, that was a no-brainer and probably a really smart move for Minnesota in that situation. Let's talk some Packers. As you guys watch this Packers team, again, you're kind of keeping close tabs on them as well. What are you focused on for them as we get into cut down day, and just some of the buzz surrounding the Packers so far?
Well, the 2 big position groups that everybody knew to pay attention to for the Packers going into this offseason were cornerbacks and wide receivers, and I don't think that's changed very much going into cut down day. I'm starting to wonder. I mean, Kalen King had a big standout, and Bo Melton has, as he talked about just before he came on, has really transformed and played very well at cornerback this year. I think those guys are probably both making the roster. If the Packers only go into the season with 5 cornerbacks they can be confident in, I start to get worried about the depth in the room. Similarly, with wide receiver, I know a lot of fans were excited about Mecole Hardman when he got added, but he's on the roster bubble too. The other player I'm sort of looking at here, another guy who was really exciting when he came in, but has had ups and downs, is Isaiah Simmons. I know he finished preseason really strong, but just in general, I think the depth at those cornerback and wide receiver rooms is a huge thing to pay attention to when you get into cut down day. It'll be certainly something our Minnesota Vikings are watching, as we are also a team that has desperate needs in the cornerback and wide receiver room.
I think also, too, with the Nate Hobbs injury, even though it's nothing significant, like paying attention to what's happening in the corner room is big, too, because if he can't go week 1 against Detroit, right now, though, it's trending like he's going to play, right? Last time I saw, I think Hobbs.
I'm sorry, you said Nate Hobbs, or who was that?
Nate Hobbs.
Yeah, it sounds like he's a chance to play for week 1, but we have not seen him do anything as of late. So to me, that is very much up in the air at the moment, and we just don't know which way that's going to go.
Yeah, I mean, and that's like, obviously he should be fine as far as full season's concerned, but like that Packer Lion game week 1 could have major ramifications down the rest of the schedule. So like, the cornerback room especially. We actually were talking right before we hopped on, Andy. Where do you stand right now on Isaiah Simmons? If you don't mind me like flipping a question over.
Yeah, just no, absolutely. Special teams is to me that's it. Like, you don't want him on the field on defense. I do think he makes the team as the 5th linebacker. He's the top gunner on special teams. Like, I think he's got that spot made, but I think he is a specialist only. And could you so I talked about this on the podcast today. There's 2 plays last year in New York where he lines up as a middle linebacker, and they drop both safeties down into the box, and Isaiah Simmons screams back to center field to play single high safety. Like, there's nobody, like maybe 1 or 2 other guys in the league that maybe could pull off doing something like that. And he has the athleticism and the background actually playing defensive back to do something like that, like on a weird, bizarro play, right? So like, you could show like a double A gap blitz with like Edgerrin Cooper and Isaiah Simmons, and then bring Cooper, have like your 2 safeties flow into the box, and Simmons scream back to deep safety. And like, he has the ability to do that. So if you want to do that, use him as a QB spy, or actually blitz him on a double A gap, like if you've got 15 plays for him in the playbook and you use him like 30 snaps on the season with those 15 plays or something, he can probably do something like that. But any sort of full-time role or anything like that, I don't think you want anything to do with that on defense. But on the meantime, you've got a linebacker that can go out and be a gunner on special teams. He's unique enough where I think he makes it, but yeah, you don't want him playing full-time defense. That's for sure.
Yeah, it seems like that. Like, he was someone who had a lot of hype coming in. I remember our comment section was filled with people who were like, was this the move of the off season? And then just kind of like gradually as the training camp's gone on, it's like, oh, maybe not.
I mean, that's been the Isaiah Simmons story. Every team gets really excited when they add him, and then the fans watch him play.
Well, it's because of the stuff that Andy's talking about, right? Like you see the physical traits, you're like, how can this guy not be amazing? And sometimes it just doesn't click.
Which is great. I mean, you get that top 10 pick and it doesn't work somewhere. And then he comes in and there's exciting plays in training camp. And for Green Bay, it's sort of the Devondre Campbell story, right? Like Devondre Campbell was a 4th round pick, didn't work in Atlanta and Arizona. And he comes to Green Bay and he's a first team all pro. And we saw it a little bit with Zach Bond in Philly, right? Like he did not work in New Orleans at all. He goes to Philly last year. And all of a sudden he gets a new team and he breaks out. I think people just have images of that in their head. And Isaiah Simmons comes over, it's former top 10 pick. And now he gets to a new D and, Jeff Hafley's going to transform him and he's sounding really great in camp. And then you see him out on the field in those first few preseason games. You're just like, oh, no, we're good. He can stay on special teams. And that's probably where he's ultimately going to find himself. We're being joined by Paul and Ziggy, the Paul Farrington Show. Follow him on social media at Farrington Show. And again, you're going to find him on the Pack-A-Day podcast this season, as well as we break down Packers, Vikings, and all things NFC North. All right, fellas, before I get you out of here, Packers, Vikings, 2025. Obviously, 2 matchups down the road. So much can happen between now and when they actually play each other. But how are you feeling just in general about these 2 teams when they match up and the state of the NFC North going into this season?
Well, I mean, last season, I like to look back on history. And last season was a great success for the Vikings against the Packers both times. No, I'm just joking around.
It was.
I think it's fun. I think it's actually good for both teams that they're playing each other later in the season. Now it'll probably bode poorly for one of them, but both of these teams right now with Jordan Love, with the injury again, he'll be fine. But like the Packers seem to be a team that get going later on in the season, and the Vikings, I think you want to kind of iron out the kinks with JJ McCarthy early on. So it's nice to get a couple of those divisional games later. I think right now, if you press me for who's going to win each one, I feel like a home and home split seems appropriate this season. They're both really talented rosters. And that's really the thing with the entire NFC North, right? We've discussed this as well, but between us on some other shows, the NFC North is loaded. Like, I'm completely loaded. If you look at pure talent and the completeness of these rosters, they are just great. And I have a hard time saying anyone other than maybe Detroit is going to go and sweep other teams, just because there's a lot of ups and downs that we've seen the Packers, Vikings, and Bears have over the past 2 years. While Detroit's the only one who's kind of just been like a bruiser for 3 years now.
Yeah, I mean, and
let me ask you. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say one thing that it's difficult to project ahead, but both of these are also teams that have real issues with depth at key positions. Obviously, wondering, the last game in the series is week 18. Who will be healthy for week 18? I have no idea, but both these teams are going to have to make some additions at cornerback and wide receiver, I think, throughout the season that can make a big difference.
I think that's going to be a key piece to this as well. But again, before we get you out of here, just really quick, as you watch Packers Lions week 1, who you root for in that game? As I'm watching Vikings Bears, I'm probably slightly cheering for the Bears just because I think they're probably a little bit of the worst team. So I probably cheer slightly for the Bears in that one. I maybe just want to tie. I'll probably cheer for tie. Tie would be great. Like both teams score 10 points and tie. Like that sign me up for that. But as you watch Packers Lions, what is your rooting interest other than, again, chaos?
I'm pretty sure, and I've given this some thought. I'm almost undoubtedly rooting for the Packers in that game, which, I need to be careful when I say rooting for it. Yeah, again, like I'm not.
No, I'm clipping that. I'm clipping that, and I'm playing that on social media. I'm rooting for the Packers. Yeah. You heard it from Paul Farrington.
I'm not going to be like out here outwardly going like, all right, GPG baby, after Jordan Love throws a touchdown. But I do think that the Lions are the biggest threat in my opinion. And look, it could flip to the Packers if Love reclaims that 2023 form, but I view Detroit as the biggest threat to the North, maybe even the entire NFC, honestly. So sure. With how difficult their schedule is early, it would be awesome to just see them drop game after game. And they'd probably make it up as the season goes on. But I want to see Detroit get in a hole early and start to have some problems because they really have been almost unstoppable for 2.5 years.
Yeah, I mean, this Lions team won 15 games last year and is bringing back a lot of important players who they missed due to injury. If any team is going to, as you said, sweep the division, it would be the Lions. So taking a loss week 1 gives me some hope that the Vikings can squeeze through in some scrappy battles and win the division.
I got to get both of you guys out of here, but really quick, what's your Vikings prediction for this season? What's the record coming up in 2025?
Let's let's be optimistic. I'm going to say that we are a 10-win team, and we sneak into a wild card.
I'm more realistic. 8 wins, no playoffs, but JJ McCarthy looks good.
Okay. I think both of those are within the realm of possibility. I think they're fair predictions. And I don't think either of those are like glass half full Viking fan optimism. It's a really good roster. I have a lot of faith in Kevin O'Connell, as much as it pains me to say that. And I think JJ McCarthy can be good as well. But as a Packers fan, I hope you're both wrong and they go 1-16. But we'll see what actually ends up happening. I cannot thank you guys enough. Tell everyone where we can find all of your wonderful work.
You can find us primarily we're on YouTube, Paul Farrington Show, and then the Twitter handle is Farrington Show, and that's where you could catch us on Instagram as well. On TikTok, we have some short form content, and appreciate you saying 1-16, Andy. That one win would mean
Thanks
something.
for the win.
Yeah.
You can take down the Lions for a game. We'll appreciate you guys helping us out a little bit in that regard.
Yeah.
So 1 win against the Lions is acceptable. We'll allow it.
Appreciate it. Thanks,
guys.
for having
Thank you.
us on.
Thank you so much. Follow them at Farrington Show. Excited to be talking with them all season long. Ziggy and Paul, we'll do this again very, very soon. And you guys have a wonderful rest of your day.
You as well, Andy. Talk soon. Thanks, Tommy.
All right. Huge thank you to both of them for joining on the Fan Guest Hotline, powered by Gruber Law. One call, that's all. Make sure again to follow them at Farrington Show. This is the Pack-A-Day Radio Show. We're going to be right back right after this.
It's 3rd down and 8 for Jalen Milroe. Got the block, crumbling pocket, and taken down. Quay Walker.
Love that play from Quay Walker in the final preseason game. That was courtesy of NBC. Welcome back to the Pack-A-Day Radio Show. My name is Andy Herman. A huge thank you to Paul Farrington and Ziggy of the Paul Farrington Show for joining us this past segment. Reminder that the Mason Crosby Show with Sparky and Mason coming up from 9 to 11 today. Also, an important PSA for our listeners. The Pack a Day Radio Show is also a podcast. You can find us anytime on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your favorite pods. Catch the full episode, listen by individual hour, or jump straight to the highlights. Just open up your favorite podcast app, search Pack a Day Radio Show, hit the follow button so you get every minute of the show your way and on your time. Make sure to check out the Pack a Day podcast while you're out there as well. All right, Tommy, we've got a leadoff show today. We could use some good news in Brewers Nation. It's not been pretty as of late, but I have a hot take really quick.
Oh,
I'm okay with this. You have to go through a little bit of these lulls, get it out of your system now. Go through a little bit of that lull before you get to the postseason. They weren't just going to start winning every game all throughout the remainder of the season. They had to hit a cold streak at some point. I'd rather it be now rather than before we get to the important games coming up here in a little bit.
Yeah, I think, and the Brewers are doing just a great job of, like, they're going to lose the attention of people now with football season, where it's like, why don't we just play our most meaningful games and most exciting games all before football season? So we keep everyone engaged until football season at this point now, Andy. But I'm not saying nervous by any means, but yesterday, we're going to talk about it as well on the Mason Crosby show. Pat Murphy had said the line trending in the wrong direction. Like, you can't argue with that right now because there really was no other direction to go other than the wrong direction for the Milwaukee Brewers. But I'm officially getting into a, why is this happening state. Concerned, nervous, maybe just a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, this is the life of being a sports fan, right? Just when you think like everything's going great, it's going to punch you right in the face and be like, haha, remember, this is a really difficult thing to consistently win in any sport and certainly in baseball. You're just going to go through those lulls where hitters don't hit quite the way you expect and pitchers don't pitch quite the way. And that's what we're seeing with Milwaukee right now. And I think coming off that huge high, they're just coming back to reality a little bit. Again, like I said, early in the season, I think they're going to be totally fine. I don't have any reason to panic on anything. Would like to get Ortiz back, hopefully at some point, and get some of those, players who are hurt, but they're going to be just fine. And I think when push comes to shove, they're still going to win the North, I think, relatively easily, or the North, you know what I mean? The Central relatively easily. And I just have Packers on the mind all the time. But yeah, I think they're going to do just fine. And once the playoffs start is when we're going to see the real Milwaukee Brewers show up. And I think they're going to be out there ready to play just like they did during that huge winning streak. That's what I choose to believe at this point in time. But I'll be listening to the leadoff show today. And if I'm wrong, I'm sure you'll tell me about it, Tommy.
Yeah, live at Brewski's today on Blue Mound. So come say hi. Wisconsin Sports Daily will be there from 2 to 5. And then I'll be live from 5 to 6:30 as well. We'll have local coverage there all late afternoon for you guys.
When you're on scene, are you allowed to have a brewski while you're at Brewski's?
No, Mason Crosby is, but I'm not allowed to, which I just think
I forgot you're still 19.
Yeah,
that's right. I forgot about that.
Boulder Dash. I am 25, but I mean I did after for a drink over at Kelly's Bleachers, which was awesome. But I probably will stay for one as well tonight because when in Rome, right, Andy?
As your indirect supervisor, which I'm going to take that responsibility, I give you permission today to have a brewski at Brewski's while you're on the radio.
When we do a show together live in person, I'll have my first beer on the radio. There you go. How about that?
Deal.
Yeah,
deal. That sounds perfect. All right, let's get to our Potawatomi Sportsbook final thought of the day.
You got to do some smart thinking.
It's time for Andy Herman's final thought of the day.
What are you thinking?
Powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook.
What the hell were you thinking?
You're listening to the Pack a Day Radio Show on 1250 AM and 105.7 FM, The Fan.
We went earlier over our 10 players, our 10 Packers who helped themselves this preseason in training camp. That was Tyron Hopper, Chris Brooks, John Fitzpatrick, Jordan Morgan, Matthew Golden, Brenton Cox, Kingsley Nigbari, Aaron Mosby, Colby Wooden, and Bo Melton. I've got 10 who hurt themselves as well. Sean Clifford, he might still be that number 3 quarterback, but he certainly didn't do a ton to help himself and make it, confident in the Green Bay Packers, picking him as that 3rd quarterback. I thought Malik Heath and McCole Hardman both had a ton of opportunities with all the wide receiver injuries to go out and show exactly what they're capable of and earn one of those spots. One of them might still do it. I think that might be Malik Heath, but I thought both of them left a lot of opportunity on the table, especially with all those wide receiver injuries. Ben Sims and Messiah Swinson, that number 3 tight end spot, looked totally up for grabs. And then Fitzpatrick went out and just totally took it. Sims could still make the teams as a special teamer. Messiah Swinson didn't even remotely compete for that spot. At least it didn't seem that way. The 3 offensive linemen, Kadeem Telfort, Jacob Monk, Donovan Jennings, all the opportunity in the world to go earn 53 spots. And again, Monk and maybe one of the other ones still do, but it was really disappointing in how they got there. And if they would have gone out and shown out, you probably don't need to go trade a 6th-round pick for Darian Kennard. So that was disappointing from those 3. Isaiah Simmons, we already talked about, so much opportunity, and just, the idea of him being out there and being a specialist both on defense and on teams was so exciting. Still probably makes it as a special teamer, but could have gone out and made a role for himself on defense, and I think totally failed to do so. Then Rasheed Walker might start due to injuries, but he has everything to play for, potentially $20 million per year if he goes out and has a good season. And he got outplayed by Jordan Morgan for that potential starting left tackle spot. So that's going to be really interesting for Rasheed Walker as well. So Clifford, Heath, Hardman, Sims, Swinson, Telfort, Monk, Jennings, Simmons, and Walker, the 10 players to me that hurt themselves during camp. Tommy, final thoughts today?
Yeah, I'm just ready for football season to be back now, Andy. We should not have to wait 2 weeks now for Packer football. That should be a crime. Preseason should end. You should get 4 days, and then we should get football. That's my final take.
That would be nice. We at least get a big roster day tomorrow, which will be very interesting. And then we get, a huge weekend of college football, which hopefully will satiate us a little bit. And then next Thursday, first game, Friday, second game, another great day of college football. And then Packers Lions that Sunday with a full slate of games, 12 hours of commercial free football in Red Zone. And then that Bears Vikings game on Monday Night Football. I cannot wait.
You
Tommy.
cannot convince me that Badger football will get me through any part
Badger
of
football.
Oh my gosh. Like
it's
gonna be rough, Andy. It's gonna be rough.
We probably aren't going to talk a lot of Badger football here on the Pack a Day radio show. Let's just put it that way.
Yes.
Hopefully I'm wrong. I would love to be wrong. That would be amazing if they went out and outkick their coverage and outperformed expectations. But we'll see what actually happens there. I'm not super confident at the moment. Tommy, huge thank you to you. Appreciate everything you do here for the Pack a Day radio show. Stay tuned for that Mason Crosby show with Sparky and Mason coming up 9 to 11. You can find the Pack a Day podcast 365 days a year wherever you get your favorite podcasts. We'll be back tomorrow with Locked On Packers, Peter Bukowski. This has been the Pack a Day radio show. Enjoy your Monday, and as always, go Pack Go.